everybody, welcome to Living La Vita Loca, a retro gaming podcast for some of your retro gaming needs. I've got two smirkers looking at me this week.
He's sticking with it.
Yeah, I will stick with it. My name is Faz.
And I'm Rich, and I nearly missed my cue.
Yeah, oh, well, you got there. It's fine.
I was distracted by the beer.
These 2 week cycles between podcasts make it. I feel really out of sync.
Get rusty, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a rusty coloured beer being poured for us by our beer sommelier for the evening, Aaron Hefferin.
That's me.
Thank you for joining us, Aaron.
Welcome, world.
4 seconds in, he's got a catch.
I know, we should use that. Isn't that, what was that?
World.
Travelocity, is it? That was Alan Wicker, wasn't it? Hello, world, or whatever it was. You got quite an Alan Wicker about you. A lovely...
Have I have no idea. Alan Wicker.
You've got
You're going to say many things during this podcast, I think, and I'm just like, I've no idea what you're talking about.
I just jumped to the Wicker Man from Alan Wicker, which would be an entirely different proposition, so I wouldn't worry about it.
No. Alan Wicker was a travel correspondent. I think he did it during the war, definitely during a war, but he's long gone now, bless him, but he was one of the original, he was like the original like war Palin. That is insane.
War Palin.
But yeah, you got a chunky knit on. I imagine Alan Wicker might wear a chunky knit. You're just drinking your beer, that's fine. We are drinking.
Yeah.
Aaron,
well,
how would we drink? So these are gifts that were gifted to me by the cleaning management person at work, because I've just left my current job in the same business, but and I was given quite a substantial amount of beer and sweets, so it's like they know me. But there was 4 Polish beers that have no. I mean, we can't describe them. We could just use, unless anyone good at Polish.
I mean, I have no idea. It just says "b" in big letters and some other letters.
Does that you say beer in Polish?
Maybe.
But a wolnidge boha.
It's got a lot of smell to it.
Oh
wow!
Got a lot of taste to it.
Oh yeah, that is.
Does it taste like what the label?
Yeah, I mean the label has got what I can describe as the wacky backy kind of looking on it, but I think that that's really floral. That's got a lot to it. To be fair, I thought we would just get a basic beer, but that's cool. I like that. I mean, I don't know if I'm drinking them all night, but I mean, we're not gonna be, but we're gonna do a lot of beer chat over the next couple of podcasts. Probably the most specific reason that Aaron's here, because Aaron's the most beer orientated or IPA orientated person that I know on the planet.
Am I? That is. I have come far then from my beginnings.
You have. So let's just tap on those beginnings then. So when we, I didn't even mean to do that. I shouldn't have said it. Oh no. When we first met, did you only drink wine and gin and tonic when we first met?
Well,
I think?
cocktails, wine, yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I went on a bit of a journey since then. Yeah, quite a long journey with beer. It's a thing with me. I tend to not like something maybe, and then I like something, and then I become obsessed about that thing. And with beer, and sometimes it dies back. With wine, I had this thing where it was a little while I liked wine, and I still do like wine, but I don't really go out looking for wine. Or with beer, my friend James introduced me to beer, proper beer, not rubbish lagery type stuff. And then I've just gone from strength to strength, you might say, on my beer journey.
You probably have. That isn't. You don't like it.
Well, it's going to say 11%.
I mean, this is probably going to be. This is probably on your borderline of rule, isn't it? Really,
yeah,
5%. I think you'd be quite angry below that. So we do have a couple of 4% as a cherry ale.
I've got a little something for later.
Oh, how exciting!
Just going to rock the boat.
Yay!
Yeah.
Sounds threatening.
It does, but I'm also excited about that, so it's fine.
This tastes a bit like when my next door neighbour is outside. I don't want to incriminate my next door neighbour here, but this kind of tastes like it smells.
What's your address?
Yeah, no, we have a similar situation, and I'm inclined to agree.
Oh, Do we? I think we probably do. Does everybody? I think everybody does. Probably.
There is a lot of weed in this town.
Yeah. Well, I think it used to be harder drugs in this town, but they seem to have cramped down now, and it's more like
Guy next door gets it delivered.
Oh, really?
It's like Deliveroo.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Genuinely.
Wow. Okay.
Is that's not allowed, is it?
No. We've got the neighbourhood watch signs, but I've no idea who they are or what they're doing.
They're watching nothing. Maybe they're brewing next door.
Well, yeah, maybe.
I'm very tempted to drag politics and the lack of local policing into it, but I won't.
There's not enough time.
There's not enough time for that.
But maybe after a few buzz.
I think Chris is familiar with my
Series 2.
Gonna shut this pod down.
Get you back on Series 2.
Is it LAPD Cop? That's a game of the PS1 where you're just like going around in like a mechanism, just blowing people's like heads off or something in the future. That's what I imagine Aaron's going to do. Like at some point, like as in
like he's going to become Judge Dredd.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Judge Dredd, like drinking your IPAs and stopping people
you're the law.
You sir, you ate your dinner without a knife, just a fork. Heads off.
I would pay good money to see the Aaron Hefferin version of Judge Dredd. I would love that.
My 6-year-old is screwed if that's the line she's got on here, because trying to get him to eat with a knife and he's just there shoving it on with a hand onto his fork, and I'm like, Oscar, will you just stop? And he's like, no, this is the system. I'm like, so don't come round at dinner time to our house because you'll probably blow his head off. So speaking of my house, and go back onto gaming and a little bit of retro gaming, we had a little bit of it. Well, I call it a faux pas. I don't. Probably never the right thing to call it. In my head, it's a faux pas. Where recently it was my little boy Rowan's 2nd birthday, and we bought him some pull back and go Mario Kart, Luigi and Mario toys, and I was talking about him sharing it with his brother Oscar, and I said, share them, like, you're both brothers, share them because they're both brothers. That is in trying to be nice and get them to share, which they did. And then Sally out of nowhere went, oh, they're the Mario brothers, like Luigi and Mario are brothers, and I was like,
yeah.
and she's like, what? And she's like, what's then? And then we got onto the conversation of, it's called Mario and Luigi Mario, and I was like, and that's why they called them Mario brothers. But then it went further in the day, so it was Rowan's birthday, and Sally's sister Jenny came round, and we were talking, and we were talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie, and then I specifically stated the Super Mario Brothers movie. Jenny then went, is that the Sonic the Hedgehog movie? I went, no. And then Sally recanted the story about the brothers' mishap in the morning. Jenny then went, are Sonic and Mario brothers? And I was like, oh, here I am doing a gaming podcast, and this is the environment I live in. So yeah, I might need some of that.
Is your mission to fix this?
Fix them.
Some kind of family tree.
I don't think they want to be fixed. I don't think they can be, and I don't think they want to be. So, and that's fair. Do you know what I mean? Like, it takes all shapes and sizes and people in the earth, and I'm married to one of them. So, anyway, so that was my little retro gaming opening bit. We should probably say what we're doing this week on the pod, shouldn't we?
Probably should. Yeah, I was going to segue from mindless violence, but we're here now. All right, I will backtrack. And talking of mindless violence, I've got, and I had to bring it with me because I couldn't remember the title, Earth Defense Force 2, Invaders from Planet Space.
Okay.
I need to give that more pizzazz. Invaders from Planet Space! There we go.
No, wait, is that...
Yeah, two's earlier in the title than that. But yeah, do you want me to wade in, or do you want to tell everybody what you've been playing?
I'll let you wade in, but I just wanted to say, I guess we're doing a bit of a planet defense week, a combat defense week.
I wasn't even going to bother trying to put a theme on it, but here we are.
I think that we have a difference of opinion when it comes to our podcast. You're not bothered about the theme.
I can't be bothered.
And what, in general?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I wouldn't be doing it if I did have to do it in my spare room.
It's only because you make me do it. You come round.
I have to rearrange the bloody room. I'm working here.
Do you do that for me? It's very kind of you.
I move a table.
I carried a watermelon. I moved the table. Yeah, so I try and theme the podcasts, and this is a combat defense week podcast,
Yeah,
Rich.
Yep, sure.
So I'm going to be looking at Ace Combat X, Skies of Deception. Skies of Deception!
Nice, well taken.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about our favourite combat defences in media amongst some beer chat. And Aaron, you're going to wade in a little bit on those towards the end, aren't you? So,
yes.
And you're also welcome to wade in, when we're talking about the games as well.
I shall. Yours is planes, isn't it? So
And mine is planes, yeah.
yeah,
And
so
you
I
know
planes.
planes. You know planes. You've flown a plane.
Well, I have flown a plane, yeah.
So maybe,
It's different ones, actually.
Oh, well,
Well, yeah, more than one of the same type, I should clarify.
Right, okay, yeah.
And gliders, so I suppose you could say two.
Yeah, that's cool. What did you prefer, a plane or a glider?
I actually prefer gliding, but yeah.
Was it like...
Falling with style.
Yeah, was it less stressful than
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fewer moving
I think
parts.
probably gliding, I was young when I did that. I was full of, beans, and I was
fearless.
Yes.
Full of buh.
And then when I was in the RAF, it was obviously a job.
Yeah.
And it was very high pressure because, it was not many strikes and you failed. Which I did. So here I am. Otherwise, I'd probably be some wing commander by now. Living
what could have been.
With an office, with a dog, because that's a privilege you get when you're...
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, they don't give you the dog, but you're allowed to have a dog in your office. It's like a thing.
I mean, you can always have more burr.
The bird is growing on me.
It's all right, actually, isn't it? I'm fine with it.
It's not awful.
It's... at least it has something about it, which is the taste of weed.
It has some character.
Yes, is that how mind-altering chemicals work? They slowly
just get to you. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lose any sleep if I never drink this ever again.
You might though. You never know that.
I suppose. Yeah, suddenly get all paranoid.
The first sip, I might have gone, "Oh, this is in the twos."
Yeah, is it creeping up the scale?
It's creeping up the scale because it's got something.
It's distinct.
There.
I'll give it that. It is distinct.
I mean, we do need to rank your beers for your Untapped app,
yeah.
But we'll talk a little bit more about that on next week's / in about 70 minutes podcast. But that because we want to go into a little bit more detail about the beers and things. But certainly we do like to put arbitrary scores on things, so we do need to remember what they're going to be on these initial first beers.
Yeah, I haven't got a pen. I know, I'll write that down in my notes.
Oh, yeah, you got it?
Otherwise I'll forget.
Rich has 2, he has like 7 notepads. There's going to be one podcast just redone on your pads.
Giddy
aunt. That is
a lot of notes.
Is that just beer notes?
No, it's just different notes about
General
different things.
notes,
You've got a list for wines, you've got a list for sous vide recipes, you've got
beers with a note of
shots.
Notes.
Takeaways, good takeaways. Coffee, good coffee. Cooking with Aaron, that's
give me
something you're working on.
No, also cooking with
Give
Aaron.
me one good takeaway and one good coffee. No explanation. I want our listeners to benefit from this. Even you guys who are listening in America, you might come to Leeds for a takeaway one time.
I don't know.
You can fly in, can't you?
The takeaways are quite brief, but it does say good Italian. Chorizo in Adel.
It's Adel.
Depends who you talk to, I guess.
Adel, isn't it? Yeah.
Chorizo.
Adele.
And it says here their website,
singer?
not Just Eat. So I think
Okay.
there are some to avoid, but I won't. I feel that would be rude to avoid list.
Yeah. I mean, you can do if you want to. Again, not many people listen to this. I don't think there's going to be a mass boycott of this restaurant. I think it's probably fine. We're probably allowed to have a little bit of sass on our pod, so you can hang on to it for now. But if you want to slip it in the last 15 seconds of the pod, you're like, don't ever fucking go here. I'm done.
Your most hated takeaway.
There's all kinds of things on here. You've got that. I've got a note just saying next door. With the names of the people who live opposite.
In fairness, that's not a bad idea.
Because I kept forgetting it. It was
it's
getting to the
that's
point
fair. Yeah.
where I was like, I can't ask again.
Welcome to Living La Vita Loca, a retro noting podcast for all your retro noting needs. We will know who. Don't say their names though, because we've already. You might incriminate them further.
I did the same thing at school. There was a nice lady who works in the kitchen, does great Thai food. She's a nice Thai lady that works in the kitchens at school.
Yeah.
She does great Thai food in our. Sorry, I work in a school just in case you.
This is getting. There's too many details now. Like, you live here. These people are called this.
How much identifying information can we get on here?
I couldn't remember the time of the game, so I wrote it down in my notes, and now I know it. See, with me, it's very much write something down. Much more likely to remember it.
No, that makes sense.
Was the act of writing it down, actually.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. Learning. We talked about learning games before, and learning notes. Write them down. Yeah, cool. So speaking of notes, then. Rich, let's plough through yours on Earth Defense 2. What's it called?
Invaders from Planet Space.
I mean, that is, it's a classy name.
It is a heck of a title.
I think I screwed up in our Instagram post and put the first Earth Defense Force game that was out on the Vita.
2017?
Yeah, so ignore that, the people that look at our Instagram.
So, fun fact, I think this came out first.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I still got my terrible cough, by the way, so sorry. Just let everyone know.
So, I think the naming and numbering is a little bit all over the shop with the series. This, I think, is a port of a PS2 game. That went by another name. Like, it was one of those weird ones where it was called something else in Japan and called something different over here. So I think over here it was Global Defense Force or something like that. But it properly leans into B-movie camp. And you are a futuristic sci-fi soldier, one of 3 classes, going around shooting bugs and robots. Mm-hmm.
That's important.
It's very important.
That's an important task.
As a sort of safety-orientated task, it is an important one.
What classes? You've told us the 3.
So one of them's a soldier.
Makes sense.
One of them is a woman who seems to have some kind of plasma-powered jump pack and a lot of laser weapons. So I played as her quite a lot because
sounds like a soldier.
It does. There is a variation on soldier.
A degree of overlap. Yeah, and then the other one seems to do some kind of support stuff, and I think can call in airstrikes and occasionally shoot things. Which, again, for those of you who are paying attention, also kind of sounds like a soldier. And
forward air controller.
There you go. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
A FAC.
Yeah. So the kind of the big draw with this is that even though it's on a dinky little handheld, it's still hordes of bugs and big stompy robots and stuff like that, and destructible buildings and things like that. So cool. It's kind of impressive in a way. The scale of it is impressive, but it gets very, very repetitive very, very quickly. And that's kind of the crux of the problem. So I hit a bit of a difficulty spike early on. I was playing on normal, got a handful of missions in, and I really don't mean many, and then switched it down to easy. And as of coming up here to record this, I had, according to the counter for the complete number of missions and the fact that you have to do each of those missions on 5 difficulty levels, I have completed about 2% of the game. So obviously there's a bunch of stuff that potentially I've missed. However, considering I think there's maybe about 70 missions and 5 difficulty levels, it expects you to replay them. Yeah. And it expects you to the draw is either playing multiplayer and just having a fun time with it, doing fun things, or just going in and getting different weapons and improving your soldiers' health and stuff like that. So it is fundamentally repetitive. Yeah. And there are some fun weapons in there. One of them's a laser blender. It's short range, it spins around a lot, and everything just sort of falls over in front of you. Which is good fun, but it's janky when you're moving around. Especially if you're using the jump pack and stuff like that, you'll sometimes end up landing and your character will keep walking at 45 degrees to the floor and stuff like that. Right. Or the collision detection between the big chunky explosive rocket launcher thing you're using and I don't know, the Earth. that you're standing on. It'll sometimes get a bit confused.
That big mound of gravitational pull bullshit.
Yeah. There was one particularly memorable situation where, like, you have this fun scale stuff, right, where you're in a city. Like, at one point, you're in London, and there's a lot of, like, "Oh, blimey, Mary Poppins" kind of stuff on the radio. Where
Is that the aliens doing that?
No, it's the terrible, terrible voice actors. Apparently, the original version didn't have voice acting in the West, and they've put it in for this, but, like, deliberately made it really, really bad, because that's kind of the shtick.
Yeah.
And it works. But, you have all this fun, environmental destruction, and then there are some maps where you're just on a beach and it's just sand and everything's flat, or you're in a tunnel. And, like, that's where it starts to get really, really dull, because it's just like, oh, the bodies are piling up and I can't shoot past anything. Cool. And the reason I mentioned the jank and then mentioned that is that there was one particular incident where I was in a subway tunnel and I just unlocked this really cool sounding weapon where it was like a grenade that you throw that, like, summons, like, lightning bolts in, like, a giant cloud, and it just takes stuff out and all that kind of stuff. I threw it went through the fucking floor. And, like, nothing happened.
Oh my god.
And then I threw another one, and it went through the ceiling. I was like, oh, for
It's the worst thing that happens in a game, isn't it? Where you're like, I have this thing, I need to use it, it's really important, and it's like, oh, it's gone. It's actually just physically disappeared from the game.
Yeah.
So the developer's like,
like, and so I thought it was me using it wrong, and then I just went outside on a different mission and tried it. It's like, oh no, definitely not user error. That's just gone through the map.
I'm gonna crack open the next beer.
Go for it.
Cherry ale.
Cherry
This is
one.
Kashich cherry ale.
Promise, I like a cherry.
Yeah,
one.
but it's only 4% though, Aaron. I don't know whether or not. I mean, it might be better or worse than the weed piss. Like, I was fine with the weed piss, which is what I now need to call it. But that's what the magnet's for.
Yeah. So the bottle tops don't go anywhere.
The Millennium Falcon has many features,
and
but
also-
the magnet for the bottle top and the bottom.
Yeah.
It is a Millennium Falcon
put it on the fridge when you do.
bottle opener.
Yeah.
By the way, wonderful. Right.
Talking of vehicles, there are vehicles in this game
Oh,
too.
nice.
Thank you for putting it back on track.
And
Good segue.
they don't work terribly well because of aforementioned jankiness. So, but it's nice that they're there.
Thanks for coming, vehicles.
Yeah, they try. And the
the
reason I'm particularly down on them is that seemingly, and I could be wrong, if you are playing as the lady with the jump pack, you can't actually use the vehicles. I can only assume because she can't get in a door or something.
That wasn't where I thought you were going to go with that. I thought you were going to say, "Oh, women driving." Oh,
I'll give you a little bit of credit.
No, not you. I didn't mean you. I just meant, like, as in, it's like, that's what I thought with it being, I guess, almost like, when I look at the artwork on the front of the cover, like, and certainly when I look at Earth Defense Force 2017, like many games of this ilk, like, you always find that there's, like, the woman's always dressed very scantily, like, whilst also having a massive jetpack and stuff. And so I can imagine a world where it's like, oh, well, no, the females can't drive very well either, so let's not put them in the car and, make their boobs bounce up and down and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, personally, if I had a jump pack, I wouldn't be wearing a skirt that short.
Which, I mean, it's just like...
I'd pop some trousers on.
I genuinely...
yeah, like, you do you. But personally, yeah, I'd go for some jogging bottoms or something. And that's why I'm not a cover star of anything.
Jetpacks Weekly.
Yeah, that one time I had a shot at being on Jump Packs Weekly.
I want to buy you a photo shoot so you can be the cover star of something in a set of joggers somewhere. That'd be great. Living La Vita Local Weekly. I can't say it. Weekly.
That is an idea for a photo shoot, though, isn't it? That, like,
me with a jump pack and a pair of jogging bottoms.
I was just thinking generally models with jetpacks.
Yes,
because they are real things now, aren't they?
Well, I mean, yeah, technically, I
Different,
guess, yeah.
positions in the sky, I guess.
Yeah.
Floor,
Sure.
Position 1 on the floor. Position 2 in the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking like catalogue model where they're just sort of gazing into middle distance or pointing at something.
Exactly. You just get it from, like, I mean, say we've got Argos in our country, and it's like, you can imagine it Argos, like, it's sort of like value buy 10% off jetpack, and someone's just there, like, in the sky in 2 different positions, obviously, wearing joggers. Rich, that's your job.
Soaring through the sky and position 2, dead.
Then it's the next. It's the future of like pole dancing.
What, jetpacks?
Yeah, so instead of being around a pole, you've got some great control of your jetpack.
Makes complete sense to me. Get rid of the pole. I mean, everyone's always struggling up a pole when they're pole dancing. Jetpack up it.
Yeah,
no problem.
You need a very big room.
Yeah,
big room. Yeah.
Oh,
I imagine there's some big rooms in Vegas.
I've not really considered the logistics
Vegas
of jetpack
has big
pole
rooms.
dancing.
I can confirm.
There you go.
Right, little plug for Vegas, by the way. Just
Give us out of 10 for Vegas.
Score
out of 10.
9.4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Loved it.
Also very
Absolutely loved it. Yeah, I don't want to.
We don't do points, but we're going to let you off with it because we're going to
9. All right.
We're going to have to drill you down to 9, but
okay, 9.
9.
I mean, 9's very good.
But very surprised I was by Vegas. I thought because I don't really gamble, or I'm very very well behaved.
Yeah. Well, now you're flying jetpacks up poles, so in miniskirts is what I'm imagining. Rich, back to the game.
Well, funnily enough, I was about to, do a little sort of, behind the scenes kind of mention, because while all of this this rambling has been going on, I've been checking my notes to see if there's anything else I've got to say, and I've got nothing.
Were we helping you out a little bit?
You were, you were buying me time. That's why I let you crack on. I think I've genuinely covered most of it. There are a couple of fun bits where, you get a big sort of Godzilla type monster that you got to fight, or the bugs suddenly become robots, and then there are different robots, and then there are robots with shields, and then there are robots with bugs, and then there are bugs coming out of the ground, and it's that kind of escalation as you go.
The irony being that the game's full of bugs.
Well,
maybe the grenade thing.
Yeah, the grenade thing definitely counts. It is fun. Is it the most fun I've had with the Vita for a while? No, it's not. Will I go back to it again? Yeah, probably at some point. But I didn't play multiplayer, and I do feel like that is the way you would get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Just all enjoying how quietly a bit shit it is.
Yeah.
It's. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is fun when it has its moments. It gets very repetitive, so I'll call it a 4 out of 10. It is fun. It is fun. In short bursts.
I think that sounds like a pretty fair score. To be honest.
Yeah.
Much like what you need a short burst with your
Jetpack.
laser blender thing.
Laser blender. What's happened now?
The laser blender. You're right. You just hold down the trigger and then just wave it around.
Yeah, but if you wave it around too much for too long,
your energy drains, and then you get killed by things spitting acid.
I checked out on that sentence. I don't remember that part of the podcast already. That's good. Good for the beer.
Sounds like a recipe for. It just sounds like a mistake leaving your laser blender.
No, stay with the recipe analogy. There's so many puns with the blender. Cool. Speaking of recipes, pour your second beer, because I've had a little tap into this cherry ale, and it's pretty good, actually. Now, don't look at the percentage, because you're not a fan of low percentage beers, but this is flavoursome. This is nice. I'm impressed.
Because I've had a lot of cherry beer. I tell you I've had a lot of cherry beers.
Ivona, the cleaning manager's done well with this one, so yeah, that is nice. I'd say it's not got loads of kick to it, but flavour really good.
Sour note.
Okay. So, moving on from ramble to more ramble, I'm going to talk about Ace Combat X Skies of Deception. That sounds
nice.
That
was good.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I need to go back and do a reread on that one at some point, but
do it again if you like.
Skies of Deception. Ooh. Yeah. No, me either. Anyway.
The end, I didn't like the end.
No, I didn't like the end either.
little bit Kermit.
Can I try?
Go for it.
Skies of Deception.
That is nice.
That's good. You sound like the guy from Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Also, in the room, you're probably the most qualified person to actually say that as well. So, good job.
Ace Combat X, I assume that must be the 10th Ace Combat game. Or maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, I am assuming it. And 2006, a Namco Bandai game. And it's very self-important is how it feels. There's a blurb at the start at the start of the game on the PSP home screen. I just want to read it out. The power and skill of 4 aces are put to the test as the battles become number 1. A lone pilot stands against the enemy with the fate of his homeland rest on his shoulders. I don't understand how that even corresponds, because at one point it says there's 4 aces and then there's there's 1. I don't really get it. Anyway, it definitely never really makes any sense that actually that there is 4 and then 1. And then it goes on to review itself. Ace Combat continues to dominate the air combat genre, this time with completely original story, all new missions, and a revolutionary game system. So I'm really exactly it's useful. It means I don't have to do anything really. So I'm going to start off with this question and then carry on a bit of a sort of I guess monologue after I've sort of put this out here for you guys. Can you really enjoy a game because of its trimmings rather than the actual game itself?
What do you mean by so? Like what?
Well, let me explain, and then maybe and because I want to sort of say what I really enjoyed about the game and what I didn't necessarily like about the game, and it's nearly all very positive, but certainly the more positive parts of it maybe aren't the actual game.
Right.
So, fantastic trailer on the PSP. The graphics are wonderful for this trailer on this, from this game from 2006. I was very, very impressed. It was like I was almost watching a live action sort of dogfight between jets. And it's only about 30 seconds, but as an introduction to the game, it was brilliant. I couldn't believe it. And I've never played an Ace Combat game before. And I tend to stay away from flying combat games because, probably going back to a previous podcast, the Star Wars podcast, everything just isn't X-Wing versus TIE Fighter with a joystick. Yeah. So I kind of I've always, with a controller, I've never really felt the love of fighting combat games in the sky. I find that it's not great. This was probably an exception to that. I found there was a couple of different types of controllers you could have, but the novice controller, which it wasn't necessarily about I guess, an ease level, but almost they got rid of a couple of things you could do in terms of extra bits that you didn't really need. It was just if you want to be more simulation.
Your maybe it was something like that.
It was exactly your. Thank you very much. Look, this is.
I thought it was going to be another sentence. Your the thing. No,
this is why I brought you in. Look at with this your.
And your out.
Yeah. And so it got rid of a bit of yaw, and that I found that really quite useful. It is, Namco, I would say, known as being like a great arcade developer, and it feels like quite an arcadey sort of.
They're Time Crisis, aren't they?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, look at that! Gaming knowledge.
Have you been practicing? Look at you.
No.
We're like, maybe.
I'm pretty sure
Rich, don't let him stage us. So that was like one part of the game where I was like, oh, this is really good. The controls are really good. And then the load briefing screens are amazing. Like, you feel like you're sat in a briefing room, and it's showing you, you see on a map, and even on a tiny scale of the PSP, the map, you can move around the map and it shows you where your character is and then what the targets are. So there could be a base to attack, there could be, and then it'll be like, oh, next there's an incoming 4 jets from this area coming in to attack you from here. And the story's really good in the game as well. I'll just skip onto that for a second, because you are a country that's been invaded by a larger country and taken over. They've got this massive airship that can occasionally set off these missiles that can take out a whole sort of fleet of aircraft if you're not flying under a certain altitude, which is a pretty cool concept. And also, the cutscenes are seen from the view of a war correspondent who's trying to find out a little bit more about what's going on in the war, so it's not quite as straightforward as you think it is. And it's a cool storyline. And you also get a lot of story from the load briefing screens as well. So whilst you've still got those cutscenes going on with the war correspondent, you kind of get a lot of story built into these loading screens, if you will, that you can interact with. And I was like, oh, I actually feel like I'm getting ready to be a fighter pilot right now. And it was really good. And then also, you can review your gameplay. So there's videos of your actual, your mission.
Like replays.
Little replays. That is from different angles, like in the jet, outside the jet, and things and stuff. And that made from some hilarious mistakes when I first came on it. I was like, right, okay, just increase the speed, increase the acceleration, increase. Oh, I've flown into another plane. It's probably a bad first mission, but it was great that you could see that. And then also the debrief screen is brilliant. It actually tracks your movement during the level. And again, for like a game on the PSP back in 2006, it tracks your movement, so you can actually see. You could sit and watch that for 3 or 4 minutes to see, your line moving through the sky, you swooping in. When I was doing it right, swooping in and attacking the base, and then spinning around and sort of going, oh no, I'm lost, oh, etc., etc. There's some wonderful missions where, like I said, alluded to before. You have to fly through canyons, and this big airship is firing cannons from, a few hundred miles away. And it's like, it's going to set off in the atmosphere. You have to get under this altitude in the next 15 seconds, but you're in a canyon area, and also you're attacking things on the ground that are attacking you, and other jets are coming after you. There's a lot going on. I think where the game suffers is because of the fact that there's a lot going on. Graphically, in-game, it's really poor, which is funny because in the loading screens, in the trailers and things like that, it's amazing. It's almost like a completely massive juxtaposition where you kind of like you'd expect the game to be performing quite well, but actually it probably looks like rear-end PS1 graphics. And I was like, that's... Right. It did feel that way, and I was really disappointed with that. But there's also, after a little while in the game, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I'm remembering things like, this is good, this is bad. One of the things that I found was really cool, like a mechanism, was that you could pick different critical paths to go down. So it'd be like, right, you can go and defend this port from being attacked again. You can go and attack the airbase, or you can go and protect these ground troops, or you can go straight to the centre of the next battle at this other town. But it would tell you what all the ramifications of those things were. And once you've made your choice, you can't go back on those. So actually you can't play every single mission in the game one time round. You have to
replay it.
You have to replay it, which is cool. But like, for example, if you went to protect the ground troops, the airship, which is what I chose to do, the airship would be attacking you. Whereas if you went to attack the airship and disable it for a little while, then it wouldn't turn up for another couple of missions. But you wouldn't have the ground troops to help you out with the next part of the mission. It is really cool. And it just felt like it was so technically well thought out, and the idea of the game growing in different directions and making you feel really included I was blown away that this was on a PSP, if I'm going to be honest. It was really fantastic. Like I said, graphically it struggled in game, and also it did kind of get a bit samey as well, in so much that whilst I was like, this is great and stuff, like after a while there's only so many targets you can attack on the ground, or it would be like a boat, and then that's fine, okay, that's a boat, well, and then you attack another fighter jet, and then another fighter jet, and then you attack another building, and it's like they're the same 3 things kind of over and over, just in different settings. But after about 4 or 5 missions, I was like, this is fun, and I know eventually I can attack the airship and that'll be a bit different, but it's very much like, I guess, well, what I'm trying to get at is I enjoy games where that would be part of a game, not just the whole of the game. That isn't, so that'd be like, I'm in an army and I'm in the Air Force, but I actually get to do different facets. I think that it would benefit from having that. But they were kind of the 2 drawbacks, really. But the graphics and sort of a little bit of sameness. But in terms of actually like everything else, and this is what I was trying to get at the start, really. Yeah. So the core game can be a little bit boring and a little bit janky to look at, but and the sound's great as well. The music's really good. It's almost like Ridge Racer-y, kind of like, it's like quite futuristic sort of like pop sort of thing in the background when the briefings are on and stuff. So you feel like you're watching a computer and everything. So everything around the game is one of the best games I think I've ever played. Like, it was just like, I was like, wow, I love being in the menu. I love learning about the game. You could buy new aircraft and you can add different different attachments to these aircraft as well. Not loads and loads of customizable things, but
near enough.
Yeah. But there was plenty of stuff there that made it intriguing enough to want to be able to move around in the menu and change aircraft. Sometimes I'm really bad at going, that's my stock. That's my stock skater and that's my stock skateboard, and I'm just going to stick on that. Whereas this, it did kind of make you feel like, oh, actually, this aircraft will be better for this mission, so why don't you pick that, or why don't you buy that with the money you've got from your war bonds or whatever. So
sounds quite a lot. It's really funny because one of the things I'm going to mention later, it sounds a lot like a game I'm going to mention.
Oh,
like really a lot of
that's
a lot
called
of
a
what you
tease.
said. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with an 8 out of 10.
Ooh.
I feel like I'm almost nearly a 9. And I think if it had just been graphically a little bit better, I think it was almost a 9 out of 10 game. It was a really fun, but for a little while, and that's probably just because the game kind of kept repeating itself in a way.
Have you you haven't mentioned one thing that I'm interested in with these kind of games is the physics of it. Because with it being flying and me, obviously having done real flying, I find some of these not specifically Ace Combat, but these kind of games quite frustrating because the physics are just not realistic at all. You do a loop and you don't lose any speed, for example, and then you just kind of keep looping around and then it's just really weird. So how did it work? Did it feel realistic in terms of physics?
I think that it was probably one of the better ones that I've played in terms of physics. It was regularly reminding me that I was close to the ground, and I rarely crashed. It felt like it was being really lenient with me. Yeah. I think I probably should have crashed more often than I did. So I think it was a bit. That's why you kind of do get that little bit of an arcadey feel, where it was like it felt like it was trying to keep you in the game.
And what's the view? Is it like, are you in the cockpit?
So that you can have either. You can have a first person or third person.
These, ones where you. The third person view for flying, I'm not.
I would say the first person was probably a bit better. Yeah, and the HUD, it was quite clean. Like there wasn't a lot going on. You kind of had just everything you needed, and I think that they probably understood that the PSP, quite a small screen, you didn't need too many things on there. You just had to do it by feel. Like this is how fast you feel like you're going, and kind of things like that. So actually, it's quite a clean sort of screen for such a small one. My
favourite flying game ever, because I used to play like proper flight. Well, I suppose you might call them proper flight simulators. There was an FA-18 Hornet game that I used to have on the manual. That's no joke, was like that thick. It was, and I'm doing about half an inch. Why am I talking?
Half an inch podcast.
Inches. Slap me in the face right now. Centimeters.
Did you have your cherry ale?
Yeah,
I just drank it. Oh, right. Okay.
So that was my favourite for ages and ages, because it was like to fly this Hornet, you actually like set the engines up in the right way, and then when you landed, there was one of the biggest things was carrier landings, and it was like, you had to get your green light on the. I don't know if you're familiar much with how they land on carriers, but there's like a set of lights. Called I think it's called the ball. So they say call the ball. It's like if you can see a green light, you're kind of the right level to come in.
All right.
So have like details like that, and you'd have to like lower your flaps and like put your landing gear out and stuff like that, and and all your like head-up displays and things would actually work like they did in the real plane.
Nice.
But it was quite hard if you put it on like realistic settings. It was quite hard. You had to remember like the checklists of things of how to fly the plane and stuff like that, and then you'd go off to war and battles, and all the weapons were like, I presume, quite similar to how they worked in real life. Like you'd have the kind of forward infrared camera, for example, and you'd be flying along, and you had to kind of like really kind of like line it up, like presumably they have to do in real life. It was, and it was real. Like you could get into the complexity of it, like as much as you wanted. Like it wasn't just a case of point and shoot. It was like. Yeah. This is how they really drop bombs. Like you'd have to like find the thing on your FLIR camera, move a little, point around to be on the right bit, zoom in, make sure they're not, and then So that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are just going to want point and click flying.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because I wouldn't say struggle with those kind of games, but certainly I know like you can get Microsoft Flight Simulator on Game Pass, and I've kind of loaded it up and went, this feels like it's going to be hard work for me. Yeah, it's going to be hard work for me.
There was that game on the original Xbox that came with that controller that was like, about 4 foot long, feet and inches. What are we doing? But had like it was like a mech game. But the controller was basically the game. It was like a mech simulator type thing. So it was kind of like a flight sim, but you're a big stumpy robot, and like I would love to give that a go.
Okay.
But then I think that's because it's that sort of sci-fi spin on it.
Yeah.
So if I can have a crack at your original question about trappings and games, because I think
please do.
Like that kind of taps into something that I've quite often felt, and I think that I think there is definitely something to be said for the trappings and having an influence on a game, because as someone who likes playing arcade games on a fight stick, like I would count that in the trappings, and so I've played Ace Combat 7, so Ace Combat X, presumably not the 10th. I don't know, because Ace Combat 7 was on the PS4.
Okay, so that makes sense.
But from what Aaron was just saying about flight sims and stuff like that, it sounds like it's very arcadey. Certainly, it's like I can see where you're coming from with the kind of Ridge Racer comparisons and all that kind of stuff. But I was playing it with a flight stick, a proper one, or as proper as you could get on a PS4.
Yeah, I had one of those for my proper, lots of little.
And it made a difference. Like it did, because I think if I was just sat there with a standard PS4 controller rather, playing it, I think it would have felt a bit flat, a bit repetitive, and all that kind of stuff. But actually having to sit there and wrestle with a big chunk of plastic, I did make a difference, and like the presentation was a bit more was cinematic, like you were saying. But with this one, actually had like a story. Yeah, I did not care about it one jot. But a lot of the other trappings, like the briefings and the debriefs and all that kind of stuff, did elevate it a little bit. So I think there's something to be said for it. I don't think it's any replacement for like good solid gameplay. Yeah. And I say that off the back of Defense Force 2, where like I was playing it was like I would actually rather be playing something else now. Okay. Which for me feels like a cardinal sin when it comes to games.
Well,
like,
absolutely.
If you're starting to get actively bored, like that's not good.
It's like, what is the point in doing this? Like,
and I don't think any amount of trappings would have completely rescued it. But it probably would have helped alleviate it a little bit. But then I think the way one person defines trappings will probably be completely different to somebody else. Yeah, it's true. If you put RPG mechanics in it or something like that, and you have that little XP counter going up and the little dopamine hit when it finally levels and all that kind of stuff. Is that just trappings or is that core gameplay? So you can definitely get into a grey area with it. But I think there's something to be said for it.
I mean, with this, I probably went in with the wrong mindset, and that's why I came out of it quite pleasantly impressed or surprised. And I think that's probably because I've not necessarily gelled with these kind of games previously. But I would say that also hasn't really painted. Like, I'm not like, I'm not overscoring it just because I thought it was better than what it was going to be. Yeah. But like things like you just mentioned the story in the other Ace Combat game, like in this one, the genuine was like quite an intriguing story. Like, as in, I didn't expect to suddenly get it felt like it was just going to be a flight sim game, and all of a sudden there's like a cutscene about a war correspondent like doing some sort of like digging into political scenarios, and I was like, oh right, okay,
it's Tom Clancy.
Yeah, it was. It really was actually. Yeah, it was a bit. It did feel like a bit of a Rainbow Six sort of flying game in a way. So
they called it Hawks, didn't they?
Sorry. Yeah. Right, so we're on to our third little Polish beer of this podcast. What do we think of Cherry Ale? Like,
talking of pleasant surprises, that was a pleasant surprise.
It's not bad. It has got the flavour there. I would say.
You just want more booze in it.
Especially with the cherry. I want more.
That was a good noise. I hope that got caught on the pod.
Bloopy.
Good glug.
It needs more richness is the wrong word.
Not for me, thank you.
Richness is the wrong word for it, but it needs a bit more depth to it to really make it like, oh, this is a great cherry beer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of cherry flavour because I quite often find it a bit sort of synthetic-y and a bit like it just... it's the kind of thing where you sort of sit there going like, you're smacking your lips and your tongue. It's like,
it does get a bit furry in your mouth,
yeah,
cherry, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. But this is perfectly pleasant.
Cool. We're on to Ziviek Biale or Biat is something, I don't know. I'm doing no justice to that.
Yeah.
I can speak German quite well, but Polish is a completely different language.
Yes.
So why would you be able to? I'm going to finish that sentence with that. So do you want to take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk about our favourite combat defence moments in media?
Yes.
Sounds wonderful. See you in a minute.
It does.
All right, we're back after that very dramatic interlude that we felt represented fighting against other forces that are trying to mess with our shit and no one's happy about it. So, should we, and protecting our beers such as this one, you haven't even tried this yet. I'm the only one that's onto the third beer. So
I'm still enjoying my cherry, just, it's good.
All right, well, we'll maybe swing back around to it. It's all right. It's a bit wheaty for richness. Over here, I was sorry. Aaron said richness. Aaron said the word richness before, and I really wanted to call you Sir Richness. I don't know.
I'll take that.
Sir Richness is like
Sir Richness.
I just want that in my life.
His royal richness.
Of umami.
Richness of umami.
So, shall we let our guest go first in this slot? And there's no definitive answers. There's no right or wrong answers. We might even have the same answers in some circumstances.
Right,
yeah.
We discussed prior to the pod, we haven't told each other what our answers are yet. We would like to keep our lives exciting and thrilling, and one of the things that we can do is by not sharing our secrets. This is one of them. So, Aaron, your top three. Oh, it can be right. Well, actually, what we said was we were going to do a 5 minute, weren't we? Like, there's a little 5 minute limit on what you can say. So,
should I do a timer?
I think it's probably a great idea. Because the thing is,
timer.
you could squeeze in 6 maybe,
More,
or you could squeeze in only 1 if you just start talking and.
Well, I did pick 3 because
gabble on, right?
It sounded like it was going to be quite, rigid.
I mean, I've got 3. I've got 2 notable mentions, for example, that I'm just going to have a little nibble at and stuff. So, but then they might already get mentioned anyway. So, right. Rich, you good with that timer?
I am ready with the timer.
So, richness of timing. Of timing,
timing and
umami. Right, ready, step, safety here.
So, okay. So, I mean, obviously, it's going to be Star Trek for me, for some of them.
Yeah.
Because...
are you going in order here, by the way? I don't want to take up your time. Are you doing like a 3, 2, 1?
No.
Cool.
There's top 3. So... I was going to go with, I mean, my favourite film ever, First Contact. That's just relegated to an honourable mention because there's only a very small battle scene in that, and I was thinking it needs to be kind of really battle scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So my first one up is, and the problem is I don't know what episode it is really, but there's an episode of Deep Space Nine. Which if people don't know, is Star Trek, where there's basically a station, and the station is there primarily to kind of protect a planet called Bajor, and this battle is just it's epic, and it's really funny because my first introduction to this battle was when I was at school, and there was a physics teacher who was a trainee. And he showed us this scene as part of a physics lesson.
Really?
And
I thought you were going to say it was like in the playground or something. You just
in a forest with a foam sword.
To this day, I have no idea why he showed this scene in the physics lesson. I have no idea what it's about. They rolled out, in the old days when they rolled out the TD.
Yeah, on the trolley.
I'm going to say, because I love you,
yeah.
How long have you taken so far?
You've got 3 minutes, 25 seconds.
All right,
okay. Oh my God, right, okay. So anyway, great. So my introduction, physics teacher, don't think he lasted long, like physics training, actually.
No shit.
It's an epic. Laughing does not count in my time. So Epic battle. So it's a big space station, and and you've never seen it. This is the thing. You've never seen it fight before,
right?
And these huge pylons just emerge from the space station, and then they're firing off photon torpedoes and phasers just going everywhere. And there's loads of this massive Jem'Hadar, which is the bad aliens and ships coming, and there's all phasers just kind of cutting through the ships as they come in. It's a massive epic battle. And they end up actually losing, but it's kind of like a strategic victory because they buy the time to set this minefield, and it just sticks in my mind because it's just the first time you actually see the station fighting, and it's just unreal, and all these kind of like weapons. You just see the power of it, and its shields and things against this massive fleet, and it manages to hold out.
Yeah.
Very similarly, the next one I want to mention is then much more recent Picard, which is a much more recent Star Trek.
Rich timing.
2 minutes 10.
And you've got this time you've got Starbase 1, which is right next to Earth, and there's a huge. Basically, the Borg have taken over the fleet, the Starfleet, most of it, and it's an epic. So it's got more of like a Star Wars feel to it in the way the battle kind of proceeds. But I really love this idea because the Starbase 1 is right next to Earth, and there's a massive shield around Earth.
Yeah.
And I just love that idea that one day, we'll have the technology to actually
pop a bubble on it.
Pop a bubble around.
Isn't Elon doing that planet right now?
and that I just love that. And the Starbase 1 is kind of obviously critical to this shield. And if Starbase 1 falls, then basically the planet shield falls. And then there's this bit where the Enterprise D reappears. Spoiler, sorry, people. And you see it kind of flying into a Borg cube, but this Borg cube is clearly massive, and it's just doing this nimble kind of. And you've never seen the Enterprise do that before.
1 minute remaining.
You've never seen the Enterprise do that before because it's like normally it's kind of this Hulk of a thing, and it's kind of. But you realise actually it's in space. It can be pretty nimble, and it flies into it, and it's just a great scene. And then my last one is Wing Commander from the Amiga, right?
Yes.
Which basically I say, because I've only got
35 seconds for teary-eyed nostalgia.
Basically everything that Chris said about the Ace Combat with the trappings and the cinematography, you felt in Wing Commander like you were part of a film.
Yeah.
And the story, I was actually hurt because one of the enemy guys who's actually on your side for most of the time turns out to be a traitor. And I felt I was like emotionally hurt by this. But Wing Commander, the gameplay, you look back at it now and you're like, oh my God, this is bad. But like the cinematics, all the briefings and everything, just...
Oh, right, okay. Actually had a noise. That's great.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. My phone's on vibrate.
5 minutes is not long for Aaron talking, is it?
I thought you did a really good job. Like,
you did well.
I was really concerned that the Deep Space Nine thing was running like 5 minutes long, and I was like, well, actually, in the end, you nipped it in pretty well. Like, Wing Commander probably got a bit short, but well, like if we were lovely and friends, we would let you have. A little bit longer, a notable mention, but we're not going to. Sorry.
Do you want to go next or shall I?
I'll go next. Why not?
Yeah,
okay. What now? Are you okay?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Save the world.
Cool. So, I'm going to go off with my notable nods to start off with, try and get them out of the way to save them, save them from being destroyed. So, Starship Troopers. That's great. I guess a defense combat film. The Earth gets hit by a giant asteroid thrown by these bugs, and it's like at the time it was a maligned film and it wasn't well reviewed, and then all of a sudden it became one of the critically best films ever, and everything that was happening in it was happening 20 years later in real life, politically and everything. And I saw it when I was like 10 years old, and when it first came out, and like my dad let me watch it, and there's like so much gore and boobs and like it's just everything you'd want as a sort of like 10-year-old. It was really, and I remember thinking at the time, this is a brilliant movie, and it was like, but obviously it was a bit of a B movie, but actually I watched it back recently, and it's a really good film. That is, and I definitely recommend anybody to watch it. Whilst it's not quite a defense of a planet. Aliens is one of my favourite films ever, and the defence sort of parts of that film where they're defending against the aliens coming down the vents and things, and there's and you've got the guns that are running out of bullets, and you can see them on the screens. It's like you've got 50 bullets left and stuff, and then the sound effects are stunning, and I've never felt so tense in a combat situation. And, you know, the grunts in that are so fucking funny and so good. It's just like, yeah, brilliant film, and also just really great moments in that film as well. So then I'm on to my 3. I had 2 games and a film in my top 3. A game coming at number 3, Resistance: Fall of Man, 2006. It was quite well reviewed, quite well liked. It was the first-person shooter I had on the PS3, and I absolutely loved it for that. That isn't so. I remember having a PlayStation 3 at university, and we all used to play, even though you had single player for a long time. You could play online as well, but single player. And everybody used to gather around that because nobody else. It was the first sort of next gen console that we had in the house, and we loved playing on that. You know, it was based in the UK, so it was really, you know, I guess, close to home almost. It's like a controversy about the Manchester Cathedral being used, you know, where there's like you're fighting and killing aliens in it. Grimsby, the fishing port, like the tiny little fishing port in our country that is in this movie. I keep going wrong. Game. It feels like a movie, and it's really cool. Yeah, and I absolutely love that, and the storyline was really great. Going into an actual movie, Rogue One, the Battle of Scarif at the end, where they're trying to stop. You know, they're trying to get the plans for the Death Star off Scarif, and they're trying to stop it also getting blown up at the same time, and it actually gets blown up.
2 minutes left.
Jyn Erso and the other chap, Andor, get blown. Spoiler: get blown up by the Death Star, and it's just that desperate, heroic sort of like, you know, it's going to end badly, and yet it's you know, the whole sort of like motley crew who went to get those plans. In the end, you know, it leads to 4, 5, 6 Star Wars, and even if it's a bit on the nose how like they pretty much have the plans being handed to Leia, like, hey, you know, like, and then a minute later she's like, I don't have the plans, Darth Vader. It's like, well, you do. Like, he just followed you from that planet to here. He's definitely a fucking traitor. And then finally, I'd say number 1, Halo Reach. The end of Halo Reach. Yeah. It's just that ultimate defeat that ends in the sort of, I guess, the original victory. It means taking a little bit away from subsequent Halo games being released, but going from having that noble team and Noble 6 and being those guys, we've got loads of time. Yeah. You know, that Spartan team, the gameplay is utterly amazing, and I think it's the definitive Halo, really, which is weird enough not having Master Chief in it, but it's the first sort of one where you kind of feel like you're really part of a team, and you get little different abilities and things. The storyline's great, and that final sort of like few minutes where you're fighting and then you start to realise as a gamer, I cannot win here. Like, my Spartan is about to die, and he's done everything he possibly can to get Cortana off this planet and to Master Chief, like unbeknownst to him, to, you know, on the first Halo ring, to get that transfer, much like the Jyn Erso to Leia sort of thing with the plans for the Death Star. Same thing here for the Spartans getting Cortana off there. The ultimate sacrifice.
10 seconds.
You know, like Armageddon with Bruce Willis, where he's like, "Oh, I'm going to kill myself to save the planet." You know, I just love those moments. They're just like, you know, the ultimate sacrifice to make. Also, as part of an amazing game, Halo Reach. Nailed it. Maybe.
Right, me, innit?
Yeah, do you want to hold the timer so you're not like you're not freaking out?
Fine. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Save the world. So I'll get the obvious ones out of the way first. Independence Day. Missile Command and Space Invaders.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, so old school shooting things falling from the sky. Right. Pandemic. The board game.
The board game,
like that was fun until the real pandemic.
Until the pandemic.
So I haven't played that for a long time now, but you know, once upon a time it was good for a giggle. In a sort of similar vein, but sort of not. I know we've reviewed something in the series before, but I've put Civilization because, like, you know, it's, you know, call it 6, however many civilizations you want. Basically, just trying to beat each other to rule the world.
Yeah.
So, depending on how you read it...
That's really cool. Yeah,
if I'm playing against Fiona, I very much see my role as saving the world from iron rule. So, that's good for a giggle.
A stretch.
Yeah, a little bit of a stretch. Not as much as this one. I've just... for my last one, I've just put, does Godzilla count? Because Godzilla does fight other monsters that are doing kind of bad
Godzilla?
things. Exactly, that's the thing. Because the original one, it's just like, oh my god, it's this giant stomping monster stomping everything, so we'll try and turn it away and hopefully everything will be okay. But then Godzilla kind of starts defending things as well. So like we're defending places from Godzilla, and then Godzilla seems to start to help. And I don't know, more of a, thought experiment, I guess, for...
I think you're an idiot.
Things. 3 minutes 25 left.
Yeah.
I misunderstood the brief.
No. I can't. What? Oh, that's so. You shouldn't have went last. You've ruined everything.
I offered.
You've destroyed the world.
What is the net destruction resulting from?
That's a nice
his actions. Does
Godzilla prevent more destruction than it causes? That is a very good question. Unfortunately, I've not watched enough of the films to give you an accurate
job
assessment on that. Yeah, we'll consider that one homework.
I've not seen any of the new Godzillas.
No,
I think I've only actually ever watched the mid-90s one, which is obviously...
I haven't even seen that. I've watched the 1950s one.
That was critically panned. But is that got Matthew Broderick in it? It's got
probably
John Reno, I think. That is it. It's a bit of a weird film.
He was in everything for a while.
Yeah, he really was.
I like the way that Chris keeps looking at me as if I might provide some...
Do you know Godzilla?
I don't expect any answers or anything.
I know of Godzilla.
Godzilla?
Yes. Godzilla, yes.
That's how they actually say it.
Yeah. I mean, I get the big lizard thing. Yeah.
Have you seen? Speaking of which, it's very similar. I'm using your minutes here now. Pacific Rim.
No.
That's. I'd really recommend that. That's a these. I guess these Goju kind of come up from the depths.
Kaiju.
Thank you, Goju. Kaiju.
Isn't that a berry?
Goji is a berry.
Goji.
Goju is the style of karate I used to do. It means the hard, soft way.
These hard, soft way come up.
Gotta watch out for hard, soft way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still laughing inside from when you said lower your flaps before. So in the hard, soft way. Anyway, Kaiju, thank you. See, you must have seen the film.
I've seen the first one.
I've seen it then.
The 1950s first one.
Oh, I meant Pacific Rim.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah, no.
In that case, no. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's really cool.
I know a good kaiju when I see it, though.
Yeah. Just giant robots, as in versus...
Kaiju. Nice.
Goju. Hard, soft robots. But yeah, I definitely recommend that. Idris Elba's really good in that. So I think I've seen both of them. And the second one's okay-ish as well. Another B movie that kind of comes out looking pretty good on it,
Nice.
It seems there's quite a lot of TV B movies that you'd call that, I guess, not your AAA or maybe, it seems to be a couple of AAA games that you could kind of claim maybe would be Earth Defense more. I don't know where I'm going with this. I feel like games come off better as combat defense mechanisms than movies do, almost in a way. Like as in Mars Attacks, for example, is a sort of a weird B movie where Pierce Brosnan's head ends up being grafted to a small chihuahua, I believe. And whereas, where talk about for example, I don't know, Halo Reach, certainly one of the most dramatic things that I've experienced in gaming. And it's I
guess it's because they can put you in the situation.
Yeah, that's what
I guess a film.
I was trying to get somewhere around that. I think I don't know. That might be the third beer talking. Maybe I don't know. But these aren't high percentages, so actually, there's not a lot of the beer talking right now. What do you think about this third one, Aaron? Before we just clock off on this podcast. Just a wheat beer, isn't it?
Functional beer.
It's literally a functional beer, and that must make you really angry.
It doesn't make me angry. It makes me think.
I'm going to have more functional beer.
This is really going to make me appreciate the beer as well. It might not do. Yeah.
Somebody brewed that. Somebody's heart and soul went into that.
It's a nice wheat beer. It's a perfectly good
actual beer. Polishman's sweat.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not.
Could be. I mean, the first one certainly could be. Someone could definitely sweat that out.
God knows what that was.
Yeah. The old wheat piss. Out the three, your favourite of the Polish beers that I've come to ruin your night with?
Actually, weed beer.
Yeah.
Just because it's the most unique.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah.
But I don't know if
Richie, you losing hair?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Don't know what that was.
And I guess on that note, for this podcast, certainly, thanks very much for listening. Sir Richard, don't lose any more hair.
I'll try not to.
Go for it.
Very aware that I'm sat looking at two blokes who kind of are.
Oh, shit!
I think mine's already gone. I don't.
You keep a nice little curl going at the side there.
No, I don't like these. Need to go. These desperately.
You know, you could just shave your head.
Oh, I can't do that.
Oh, really? Do you need to hang on to it?
Well, you see, Lucy's said that a few times to me about shaving my head, but I don't know. I like there to be a bit of hair there.
All right.
Or maybe it's because I like to do this.
Weirdly, I can't imagine you with a shaved head.
Yeah, you can do that without. I mean, I'm the same. I'm the same as Richard. I've known you
skin with my fingers. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
I don't want to rub my head skin.
I mean, like, you know.
And on that,
bye. But just bye.